Healthcare payroll. It sounds like a pretty straightforward back office task, right? But here's the thing. If you get it wrong, you're not just fixing a spreadsheet error. You're messing with the single biggest cost center in any hospital. Today, we're going to unpack the strategic blueprint for building a payroll system that's actually ready for the challenges of 2026. Let's dive in. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to tackle this in 5 key parts. First, we'll look at what I call the healthcare payroll paradox. Then we'll map out a core architectural blueprint. After that, we'll see how a standard called FHIR unlocks crucial data. We'll talk about the all-important compliance and security shield. And finally, we'll peek into the future at the 2026 tech frontier.
Okay, so let's start with that paradox. You'd think by now payroll would be a solved problem. I mean, it's been around forever. But in healthcare, it is a completely different animal. The off-the-shelf software that works perfectly fine for a retail store or a factory, it just completely falls apart when it comes up against the unique demands of a hospital.
You know, the best way I've heard it described is as a perfect storm of complexity. It's this wild mix of variables and rules that traditional tools were just never, ever designed to handle. And unlike other industries where a payroll mistake is, an inconvenience, here the consequences can be absolutely massive. Just how massive are we talking? Well, get this. Labor accounts for 50 to 60% of a hospital's entire budget. So you see, a modern payroll system isn't just some administrative tool. No. It's the main lever you have for managing the single largest expense in the whole organization. Getting this right has a direct, huge impact on financial health.
So where does all this complexity even come from? Well, it's a bunch of unique rules you just don't find anywhere else. Think about weird stuff like the 8 and 80 overtime framework, or blended overtime, where you have to factor in things like hazard pay before you can even start to calculate the overtime rate. Then throw in staff working across different states with different tax laws, plus a dizzying array of bonuses. Yeah, it's a real logistical nightmare.
And really, this is the core of it. This is why healthcare software is just different. With generic software, if it fails, maybe you lose some business. But in healthcare, if a system fails, say an incorrect staffing schedule happens because of a payroll glitch, that could actually lead to patient harm. You're dealing with a world governed by HIPAA, with super complex system integrations and incredibly sensitive data. The stakes are just in a whole different league. Okay, so if the off-the-shelf tools are a no-go, how in the world do you build a solution from the ground up? Well, that brings us to our core architectural blueprint. This gives us a structured path to get from a great idea to a validated working system. The development process here has to be incredibly methodical. It all starts with discovery. Are you aiming for huge hospitals or maybe niche home care agencies? But then, and this is critical, the next step isn't coding, it's compliance. You have to bring in legal experts to validate the logic before a single line of code is written. From there, you can focus on an intuitive design to cut down on user error and build a modular engine that can actually adapt to the rules, which are always changing. This whole thing is a marathon, not a sprint. At the very heart of the system is the calculation engine, and you should think of it less like a calculator and more like a powerful, logic-driven machine. It's built from the ground up to flawlessly juggle all those complexities we talked about, shift differentials, tiered pay, automated tax rules, all with absolute precision and no human intervention. But look, a powerful engine isn't enough if it's trapped in a data silo. A modern system has to be able to talk to the rest of the healthcare world. And this is where we unlock the data using a standard called FHIR. It's basically the universal language of health tech. So, what is FHIR exactly? Well, think of it as the Rosetta Stone for healthcare data. It's a modern standard that uses the same kind of web technology that powers pretty much the entire internet. This allows completely different systems, like your new payroll software and an electronic health record system, to speak to each other securely and, most importantly, efficiently. And FHIR isn't some new, untested idea. It's been slowly and steadily evolving for more than a decade now. The really big moment was in 2019, when it became a normative standard. Now, that's just a technical way of saying it was officially stable and ready for prime time. That was the signal to the entire industry that this was the foundation to build on for the future. It's mature, it's reliable, and now it's absolutely essential. And here's why this is so critical. Using standards like FHIR is no longer optional. Federal laws, specifically the 21st Century Cures Act, now legally mandate data sharing. What that means is that interoperability has gone from being a nice-to-have feature to a non-negotiable legal requirement. That legal mandate for sharing data leads us perfectly into our fourth section, the non-negotiable shield of compliance and security. Because if you're going to be exchanging sensitive patient and employee data, you absolutely have to build your system on a foundation of trust.
The bedrock of all this is, of course, HIPAA. And its security rule is really built on these three pillars. You've got administrative safeguards, think policies and procedures. Physical safeguards, which is about securing the actual servers and computers. And then technical safeguards, which is where things like encryption and access control come in. You have to nail all three.
To put those safeguards into action, modern systems rely on advanced frameworks. First, there's a zero-trust architecture. It works on a very simple but powerful principle. Trust no one by default. Every single request to access data gets verified, every single time. And second, for sharing data with other apps, you use a framework called Smart on FHR. It's like a secure gatekeeper that only gives apps access to the specific data they need, and only after the user says it's okay. Okay, so we've designed a compliant, secure, interoperable system that works for today. But what about tomorrow? In our final section, we're going to look ahead to the 2026 tech frontier, the stuff that's poised to transform payroll from a reactive calculator into a predictive, intelligent engine.
First up is artificial intelligence. Instead of just reacting to timesheets after the fact, AI can actually predict future payroll costs. It can automatically flag anomalies, like a payment that looks a little off. And it can even use natural language processing to read new, dense regulations and give you a summary of the changes. Pretty cool, right? Next, let's talk about blockchain. Now, I know the term can sound intimidating, but its power here is actually really simple. It creates an unchangeable, permanent record of every single transaction. This means you have a perfectly secure and verifiable audit trail built right into the system, which makes audits way more transparent and a whole lot less painful. And finally, integration with the Internet of Medical Things. Imagine this: connecting your payroll system to wearables and other smart devices that automatically and accurately track a nurse's time and location. This data can automate timekeeping with incredible precision, pretty much eliminating manual entry and all the errors that come with it. So, let's end with this thought. Mastering healthcare payroll isn't just about cutting checks correctly. It's about mastering one of the richest, most complex data sets in the entire organization. And if you can use that data to predict workforce needs, well, what else can you start to predict? Patient outcomes, operational bottlenecks, the hospital's financial performance? That right there is the real tech frontier for 2026.